Hey folks, your OS Reviews. You're watching our video first look and a quick review of the SoundPEATS Q1000. These are a wireless Bluetooth in-ear style pair of headphones, which sells for under 25 bucks. SoundPEATS, of course, have been making Bluetooth headsets for quite a few years now, and they always sell in the budget segment, but they often provide pretty good quality for the money. And the Q1000 uses this collarbone style, which is very reminiscent of the LG Tone that was first released around 6 years ago. And you can remember that we've seen quite a few iterations of headsets like these through the years. They often use a magnet to hold the ear tips into place when you're not wearing them, since the collarbone part will sit on your neck just to make the experience a bit more lightweight, since that's where the batteries and the chipsets are located. On the Q1000, what's interesting is they've gotten rid of the magnets altogether, just since they were often very weak and the headsets would fall loose whenever you rattle it or walk around. So now it basically dangles on the sides, but also makes it a little bit easier to just tangle up and use it in a more mechanical way. So it uses Bluetooth version 4.1, and it also features aptx lossless decoding technology, has a 5-hour rated playtime, and it charges up in under 2 hours using a standard micro USB cable. So these are all fairly average specs, although to be honest, I was expecting the audio performance to last a little bit longer, considering with a collarbone style, they have more room for a larger battery. So I kind of expected maybe 7 or 8 hours of continuous playback. Regardless, the design itself is fairly sleek, and in the packaging, there's access just to the earphones themselves. We'll take a closer look at that in a second. Below here, there are the accessory pouches, which include the micro USB cable for charging, and there's also a spare set of silicone tips that you get for a more comfortable fit in case the ones included don't fit very well. And there's also a quick start guide that documents how to set it up and pair it with a phone. So you can see that the Q1000 series is a lot smaller as far as the overall footprint compared to other collarbone style Bluetooth headsets from SoundPEATS in the past. By getting rid of the the part which attaches the in-ear tips, it has to kind of stick into the sides magnetically altogether, they can make the frame more compact. And you can see that as a result, it's a lot easier to take with you since it weighs less and it seems a little sleeker in its construction. Otherwise, the build here is mainly made out of a soft touch plastic rubber, and it comes in a few different color iterations. The one we have here is just completely black, and the front here features a key that you can tap on to play, pause your music, and also answer and reject your phone calls. And on the side here, there's dedicated volume controls, which are fairly well designed. They're tactile, they have good feedback, and the other side features a dedicated power switch, so you can turn it off completely to save on battery life. And there's also a microphone next to a flap that covers the micro USB port for charging. So you can also use this as a Bluetooth headset. So once you've paired it with an iPhone or an Android device, you can answer and make phone calls with it when your phone is inaccessible and perhaps you're moving about and can't reach into your pockets. If we take a closer look at the in-ear tips, you can see that they are made out of aluminum. What's kind of unique is that the end caps themselves are magnetic. So instead of having a cap, maybe a position on the side of the collarbone that's magnetic, now these two ear tips just attach to each other when you're not wearing them. And so it still prevents a fairly elegant setup if you have it worn and not listening to music at all. It's not like it's going to get super tangled up, so the wires themselves will still stay in place decently, despite not attaching into the collarbone segments themselves. Otherwise, they are fairly comfortable as far as wearing them, just because most of the weight is supported by the collarbone. That's where the battery and again the chipsets are located, and the tips themselves, although they are made out of aluminum and metal, they feel fairly lightweight and compact, and they stick into your ears fairly comfortably. There's a slight ergonomic edge and an angle to the rubber tips, so they prevent these from falling out. I should mention though that these aren't really suited for I guess extreme movements, since they don't have a tip or a longer arm on the outer edges of the earphones, and that means if you're vigorously shaking your head around, they will still occasionally fall out. So despite the really sports-oriented segment that the Q1000 is being advertised for, they're not the most rugged earphones that I've tested, again, since it lacks that larger arm. But still, they're fairly comfortable, and wearing it for about 4 to 5 hours continuously doesn't really pose a problem. So for under 25 bucks, again, the Q1000 are fairly traditional as far as the audio quality, and it doesn't have a noise cancellation function, so they're not active noise canceling. That means if you are going to an airplane or or if you plan on taking these into very loud environments, they aren't the best choice in the world. However, the Bluetooth connection range, which is rated at around 10 meters or 33 feet, is actually pretty good. Even if I was stretching the distance between the phone and the headset at around 10 meters or so, it still provided fairly clean sounding audio performance, which is good. And again, the battery life in our testing indeed got roughly 5 hours. So it's average, but I think that it could get a little bit better maybe in a second generation model if SoundPEATS were to improve on this. Otherwise, if we talk about the audio quality, I would say that they have a nice amount of clarity to the sound, and overall there's also a little bit of bass as well, which is a bit surprising considering the size of these tips, which are still very compact and small. However, they sounded fairly clean, and unlike many other earphones in the same price segment, you can't really notice any distortion or static if you listen super closely. So the sound here again is actually quite good for the price that you're paying, and especially as a sports-oriented pair of headphones, the most important thing is that it gets reasonably loud and the battery performs well, and it certainly does all those things. It's not an audiophile grade pair of in-ear style headphones, and that's not what SoundPEATS advertises either. But for the general user, I think that you'll be pleased with the audio experience. For things like pop music, electronic music, it certainly performs quite well for this price and its design. So you can check out more details about the Q1000 in our upcoming official written review, but for now, this has been our video. Thanks for watching here at OS Reviews. This has been the SoundPEATS Q1000, the increasingly popular collarbone style wireless Bluetooth in-ear headphones.